Hi, and welcome to Healthy Kingston. It's a pleasure to have you with us today as I am hosting the next half an hour of what I think is a very interesting, informative, and timely program, helping to get information out to people within the Kingston community about how to remain well and happy and healthy. This month is actually National Diabetes Awareness Month, so that we will be talking about that extensively, and we have a renowned expert in the area of nutrition, Marcia Richards, who is a nutritionist at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital. She's very well known locally, and she's been on many PAC TV programs, and she will be speaking to us and giving us practical tips on healthy eating, maintaining a good diet if you are diabetic or hoping to prevent yourself from having diabetes. We also have an excellent speaker who again has been known locally, who is an entomologist. He is with the Plymouth County Extension Service. His name is Blake DeCinius, and he will be talking with us about ticks. And if there's anyone who can make ticks interesting, it's him. And I had thought mistakenly for quite a while that ticks were more of an issue in the spring or the summer, and actually they are an issue all year round, and he will be getting into that and telling us a lot more information on how we can prevent ourselves from becoming exposed to ticks and what to do in the event that we are. But before we get to speak with those two people, I would like to introduce our health agent for the town of Kingston, Arthur Boyle, who will be updating all of us on what has been going on locally in the health department.
Well, it's good to be with you in show number 2, so we know it's working.
Thank you.
And we've gotten a lot of good feedback about the program.
Great.
So
That's
what's
nice to
happening
hear.
locally in Kingston is the same that's happening locally on the South Shore. It's getting colder. We're still going to have ticks, as you say, and Blake is a great guest to have that information disseminated by. But we're running into questions like AFM was in the news recently, and people don't even know what it stands for. And I know I had to look myself initially and try to come up with, the acute flaccid myelitis is what it is. And it's a polio-like disease that affects the nervous system. And it's become a nationwide problem where you didn't hear of it a year or two ago. You heard a little bit about it maybe in the last 6 months because it's affected originally 22 states, and now it's up to about 44 or 45. And it's very disconcerting for us that are in the local health field. And it's frankly concerning the DCD and it's a problem.
Can you speak to the extent of the issue in Massachusetts or in this area?
Yeah, there are 2 cases in Massachusetts that we're sure of, and there is 2 cases pending. But they don't know whether it's environmental or genetic, which is similar to Parkinson's, which is a neuro irregular concern, and it affects the nervous system. You get a sudden onset of weakness that you might attribute to something else, having vacationed and walked 100 miles or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's very concerning to the locals, and we don't know what to tell them yet. And that's the scary thing for us, is we don't have the answers, and we're looking on a daily basis for news regarding the AFM, and I've found some interesting articles online, and one in the Boston Herald where you don't like to think you wouldn't find something interesting in the medical area, but they carried quite an extensive story on the 2 cases that are known, and they've dropped in to add to their program or to their paper, the other 2 cases that are pending. So,
mm-hmm. So we're looking for muscular weakness and fatigue, very vague symptoms but still in all need to be important to recognize.
Excuse me. Yeah, because you've got so many other things that, the flu can start that way, or,
Right.
A head cold, which I have one now. It's very difficult to, attribute it to
Pinpoint what it is.
AFM.
Right.
And as you say, to pinpoint it, you can't. You've got to go through the testing procedure. And,
Right. So just be aware. And certainly, this is the time of the year, if you've got any questionable symptoms like that, seek your doctor's advice.
Yeah, don't take it as, fluff it off of it's the flu, or
Right.
it's, something I get every year, or it's something that I had one of my children brought home from school or something like that.
Right.
Check it out. Your life is worth saving, and
Okay.
that's the clear message we can give you.
Okay. Terrific. Well, thank you out there. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank
and
you.
For all the work you do for the people of Kingston. Really appreciate it.
It's a work of pleasure, and I enjoy the job very much, and I enjoy the people. So
Terrific. All right. Thank you. Hi, next I would like to introduce our guest, Blake DeCinius. He is an entomologist with the Plymouth County Extension Service. As I mentioned earlier, he has spoken extensively on ticks, has a lot of tremendous information that I think you'll find quite informative. So Blake, first off, I think I alluded to this earlier, what is the tick season?
That's a great question, Janet. So a lot of people think maybe it's just occurring over the summer, but in terms of when we think of the risk of tick-borne disease, now that's a year-round problem. You've got the deer tick here, the tick that most people are concerned about, the one that transmits Lyme disease. That's what I usually say. This tick is going to be active in the summer months as the nymph stage tick and also the larval stage tick. But when we get into the October month, from October right around until about really the end of April, early May, what you have active is known as the adult stage of this tick. And this tick is going to be seeking out the blood of a large mammal at this time, mainly deer, but sometimes us.
Wow. What are some differences between this time of the year and the summer months as far as ticks go?
Another great question. So when the major concern with this particular stage of tick, the adult stage, is that it's about 50% infected with the agent that causes Lyme disease, unlike the nymph stage tick, which is infected about 25% of the time. Now the good news is that this particular tick is much easier to see, but the tick can also be brought in around this time to unsuspecting victims. Like for instance, if you had been lounging on your couch all day long, but you let your dog Sparky outside, and your dog Sparky goes and plays outside, now your dog can come inside, and you may not be aware of this new tick that, not necessarily a new tick, but a different life stage of tick that is now higher infected with Lyme, and because you're unaware of it, now you're at a greater risk for getting Lyme disease.
Huh.
And this tick, the other thing to know about this particular tick is that it's found much higher up off the ground than the nymph stage tick, which occurs during the summer months. This tick can be found as high as 2.5 feet off the ground. So that's something you want to be aware of when you're going out for a walk in the woods. For instance, we might have a nice October day or a nice November day where the temperatures get into maybe the 50s or 60s. People might want to wear shorts, or they might want to wear shorter, not long pants.
Yeah.
And now they've just exposed their calves and everything from 2.5 feet down. You got to think that's about waist height down to potentially getting ticks to attach to them as well.
What about in freezing weather, like below 32 degrees?
Below 32 degrees, this tick is going to become not necessarily dormant, but it'll become less active. It's really when you get any temperature above 32 degrees, that's when this tick becomes active. Now, the other two ticks that we have in this area, the American dog tick and the Lone Star tick, those are two other ticks that can bite humans. Those ticks, they kind of go into like a sleeping mode during the winter season, but the deer tick, it's a different kind of tick. And this tick, it's active any time temperatures get above freezing.
Wow.
They actually synthesize glycerol in their blood. Historically, that was used as antifreeze. And they have a number of behaviors that they use to keep themselves warm as well. So they'll burrow underneath snow and underneath leaf litter. A lot of times people will say, like, it's so cold, will the first hard frost hurt them? Not really. I mean, you got to think the ticks have been here for thousands of years. They're well adapted to living in New England. We've even seen cases as high up as Alaska. So if you think
Really?
that Massachusetts gets colder than Alaska,
Yeah.
I don't know. You know?
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Right.
Well, how do you protect yourself? How do you cover yourself up and protect yourself other than clothes, the obvious, from the ticks?
So a lot of times you might see, many times you see pretty much the usual. People say, wear long pants, cover your skin, do a tick check. But there's also plenty of other things you could do in addition to that to avoid tick bites and keep yourself safe. So the key really is being aware that this is the risk that's out there, but not being afraid of the ticks that are out there. I go outside all the time. I don't lock myself indoors. Now that's one way you can stay safe from ticks. But
Yeah.
We live in one of the best parts of the country. You should
Right,
be going
wanna be
outside,
outside.
enjoying yourself, doing
Sure.
things outside. And so in addition to wearing your clothes and doing your tick checks, you've got two types of repellents that you can apply to your body. So the first one is going to be what we call EPA registered repellents. Now these are, DEET, that's the traditional one. That one's been around since about the 1930s. And that'll work on ticks as well. So you can spray DEET on yourself and on your clothes, and that'll repel ticks. But if you don't like DEET, and I know nowadays it's pretty popular not to like DEET, you also have 3 other EPA registered repellents, and these will work just as well as DEET. So you have picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus, and IR3535. And that last one, that IR3535, that's also known as Avon Skin So Soft with Bug Guard. So if you know an Avon representative, you can get the IR3535. Now something else to note about these repellents is that for the DEET, the picaridin, and the Avon Skin So Soft with Bug Guard, you want about 20% or more. You don't need more than 20%. 20%, that'll do it. But if you decide to go with the oil of lemon eucalyptus, you want 30% active ingredient or more. So the oil of lemon eucalyptus requires a little bit more, but you'll get the same repellency as DEET if you wanted to use that. The second thing you can do, and this is really kind of like our silver bullet against ticks, is that you can treat your clothing with a product called permethrin, or permethrin, tomato, doesn't matter as long as you use it. And this is a product, it's a little bit of work up front, but the payoff is huge because this product will not only repel ticks, it'll also kill any ticks that attach to your clothes. And so you can traipse through the woods, walk through the woods, roll around in the leaves, and any ticks that touch you, they're gonna be killed. They're not gonna live long enough to really bite. And really the research has shown that you get about 97 to 100% protection with using permethrin treated clothing.
Wow.
Very, very good.
Where can you buy these
All of
items?
these products?
Yeah.
So you can get them online through Amazon. You can go
Okay.
through Walmart, Target, Dick's. If you're looking for the permethrin, try the hunting section. Very
Okay.
often these are kind of hunters use these more often than normal people. But the other thing about the permethrin that I need to caution you about is that the process is simple, but it requires certain steps that you must take. For instance, it's clothing only. You never apply it to your skin.
Okay.
You want to keep it away from cats when it's wet because it can cause some issues with cats.
Really?
But then once it's dry, then it's good, and it's good through wash cycles, up to 6 washings in 1 month. So if
Okay.
you do your shoes, which you never wash, you can spray your shoes. That's good for a month.
Huh.
But I have a cat. I'm a cat person.
Yeah.
My cat sits up on my lap. I treat my pants with it. As long as it's dry, you're not really going to run into
Okay.
any issues.
What about little children? I know people get nervous about what can I put on my child's skin, particularly, infancy on up, toddlers that are outside. What would you suggest?
So I would still suggest for skin, I would still suggest the same things. Now, a lot of times when people have run into issues with DEET, for instance, they're using a percentage much, much higher than the 20%, which is what I said is the minimum that you want. So it's generally a case of a toddler, a 3-year-old, getting their hands on maybe 70 to 100% bottle of DEET, and either it's overexposure to the compound.
Okay.
And you don't need the 100%. Sometimes you see that in store, and you're like, more is better. I want to go
Right.
with more.
Yeah.
You don't need it. You only need the 20%.
The 20%,
And
okay.
what I do is going along the lines of the permethrin. So that's been approved for pregnant women, nursing mothers, infants, toddlers, and children.
Oh, okay.
And 2.5 feet. I've got a 3-year-old niece. She, 2.5 feet. That's her whole body. So I just, I treat her clothing. I treat her shoes. She doesn't even know she's wearing it. Doesn't smell bad. It doesn't stain. And she wears those clothes, goes outside and plays, runs in the leaves, goes to the woods, and she's fine.
Okay. You were talking about rosemary earlier?
Oh yeah. So one of the things one of the bigger questions that a lot of people try to bring up is what is the efficacy of some of the more all-natural products? Some of the the biggest word of caution when it comes to using these is that I say use at your own risk. Now, a lot of times people will tell me as a retort, well, I feel that way with DEET, because a lot of people, they're nervous about these compounds. I'm more nervous about the all-naturals because there isn't a lot of data to back it up, but the data that we have seen on them is that they're not nearly as effective as some of these other EPA-registered compounds. And by EPA-registered, what that means is that the EPA has data on file to demonstrate their efficacy and their safety. With the all-naturals, they don't require a shred of data. And so it could be someone selling you water, it could be someone selling you not rosemary oil, it could be something else. There's no regulation when it comes to this. So it'd have to be something that you would trust.
Got it. Very quickly, how long does it take for a tick to transmit disease once you're exposed?
That's a good question. It really depends on the disease. And so they used to have this 24-hour rule. And I went in and I looked into that and I was like, is this like Cinderella where, all of a sudden at the stroke of midnight, now all of a sudden you have Lyme disease? It doesn't quite work like that. And the diseases have there's different times, and it's more about increasing risk as long as the tick stays attached. So I have seen studies where a tick has been able to transmit Lyme disease in 18 hours. And so as far as I know, there's really no official minimum when it comes to Lyme disease. And then you've got Powassan virus, which that can be transmitted by a black-legged tick or deer tick as well. They've estimated that at about 15 minutes. And then alpha-gal allergy, which is the allergy to mammalian meat from the Lone Star tick, which we don't really have in Plymouth County yet. That's just, who knows what that is. That could, again, be minutes as opposed to the 24-hour.
So it sounds like the bottom line is check yourself frequently when you come inside and get it off of you as quick as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely the bottom line. The other thing to note is that we have been talking about a lot of different ticks, a lot of different diseases. There's even this new thing about this longhorn tick, this Asian longhorn tick. The protection methods that we listed, where it's the long pant, long clothes, the EPA registered repellents, the permethrin, the tick checks, all of that, that'll be effective no matter what the tick species is. So if you're someone who just says ticks gross, I don't need to know about ticks. You can do the same thing and it'll work for every species.
Okay.
Which is a good way to think of it.
Think about it, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you so much, Janet.
Very practical advice. Take care.
Great.
Welcome back. And have a very special lady I'd like to introduce you to, and she's a friend as well, just a colleague. Marcia Richards is a dietitian, nutritionist from Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital here in Plymouth. And being that this is National Diabetes Awareness Month, I thought that it would be important to hear from her as to what she has to say as far as maintaining your diabetes if you have it, and also if you're preventing yourself from becoming diabetic, hearing what you can do nutritionally to stave that off. Just want to tell you up front what an issue diabetes is in this country. It affects over 30 million people in the United States. Nearly 1 in 4 adults has diabetes and they're not aware of it, which is really very scary. Another 84 million Americans are pre-diabetic, meaning that they have high blood glucose levels, high blood sugar levels. However, they're not high enough yet to be diagnosed as diabetics. And again, 9 out of 10 adults who are pre-diabetic don't realize that they have diabetes. It's important you know that if you have a family history of diabetes, if you're over the age of 45, if you are overweight, if you are inactive, you are prone to diabetes. So it's very, very important that you keep that in mind. History of diabetes, over 45, inactive, and overweight. So with that said, I'd like to turn this over to Marcia, who will be talking to us about quick tips for maintaining a diabetic diet.
And I have 2 basic tips that I wanted to share.
Okay.
First is the concept of carbohydrate counting. And I believe that the viewers will be able to see a screen on what counts as a carbohydrate serving. So carbohydrates convert to glucose. That glucose can have an impact on a person with diabetes. So the whole goal with diabetes is to manage your glucose levels. So a real effective way to do this is by carbohydrate counting. Average adult can have 3 to 4 carbohydrate servings, 3 to 5 carbohydrate servings per meal, and maybe 1 or 2 per snack. So that's going to matter on a person's calorie needs, how active they are, how tall they are, how old they are. So a serving of carbohydrate would be a slice of bread, preferably a whole wheat, half a cup of cooked oatmeal. It could be a glass of milk, and that would be an 8-ounce serving, or a piece of fruit, a small potato. These are some examples of what 15 grams of carbohydrate equals. So maintaining 3 to 5 servings of carbohydrate to a meal will help to maintain the amount of glucose that is produced. And we need glucose for energy, but when we're dealing with diabetes, we need to match the amount of glucose to the medicines we might be on or not on, and how much insulin we're producing. And insulin is the hormone that helps to keep blood sugar where it belongs. So I would encourage everybody with diabetes, if they don't feel comfortable with carbohydrate counting, to learn more about it. American Diabetes Association would be a great first source to get some more information.
And as you say, serving size. But actually, I think 3 to 5 a meal is not bad.
Exactly.
Being a carbohydrate junkie that I am. Yeah.
So, and you're bringing up a very good point when it comes to portion size, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but it never hurts to hear things twice.
Right.
So you can use your hand as a good method for portions, or use a measuring cup or a scale, but your portion is important. If we're saying 3 to 5 carbohydrate portions, you got to make sure that your portion is accurate. It's one slice of bread. It's not a bagel the size of your head.
Right.
You need to really make sure that your portion is controlled. So your hand, a forward fist is about a half a cup. Palm of your hand is about 3 ounces. A full fist is about 1 cup. Your thumb is about a tablespoon, and the tip of a finger is about a teaspoon. So if you don't have the actual tools to use, you can use your hand, which is usually with you.
Yeah.
Right?
You would hope.
So portion size is going to be important. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I am going to bring it up again if I rattled through my hand too fast.
Okay.
Everyone will hear it again.
Okay.
So the second step in managing your diabetes is about healthy eating. So we've got a My Plate for everybody to follow, and we also have a My Plate for diabetics. So carbohydrate counting is important, but we need to also make sure that we're eating a balanced diet. So carbohydrate sources are fruits, vegetables, grains, and also dairy. So even though a cow or a goat isn't a fruit or a vegetable or a grain, they consume a vegetable in a sense from grass. And then that glucose crosses over into the milk. So a dairy is also considered a carbohydrate. So you want to have a well-balanced plate. People who have diabetes have a predisposition to heart disease. So it's very important that they consume a heart-healthy diet. So half of a plate should be fruits and vegetables. Preferably non-starchy vegetables, carrots, green beans, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower. Starchy vegetables are okay, but they should be a smaller amount. So things like winter squash or potatoes, legumes, beans, lentils, really, really good for you, but maybe in smaller amounts. Definitely fruits, and whole vegetables are going to be best. Canned and frozen are definitely okay, but not with added sodium or an added sauce. Try to have them plain, but I think it's a good idea to have canned without salt and frozen without salt or a sauce on hand, so that you can always make a meal.
Right.
And also think about meals that are more vegetable focused, a vegetable stir fry, a stew, a chow mein with more vegetables, a salad with some protein added. So half of our plate should be our vegetables. We should have some fruits. We should have non-starchy vegetables. And we should also have lean protein. Try to have more fish, maybe twice a week on the fish. Have chicken, have turkey. Maybe try doing a vegetarian meal once or twice a week. Try tofu, stir fry that. It tastes really good. It usually picks up the flavor of the other foods. Dairy should be low fat or low fat. And that can be cottage cheese or yogurt or milk. Look at the sugar contents on labels and make sure, compare one label to another and make sure you're getting the lowest sugar contents.
Got it.
All right?
What about preventing diabetes?
So preventing diabetes, as you mentioned, there's a very large number of people in the US that don't know they're diabetic. Children are also developing type 2 diabetes at a very fast rate due to lifestyle, being overweight, poor food choices, and being inactive. So I have a couple of tips for diabetes prevention. The first tip is going to be about attaining a healthy weight. If you're not at a healthy weight for you, it's very, very important as a first step to get to a healthier weight. Losing as little as 7% can result in phenomenal benefits. So portion control is one of the best ways to achieve a healthy body weight. So if you've got a food scale, if you've got measuring cups and measuring spoons, I highly recommend that you use them at home to be consistent with portion sizes. So a cup of vegetables at a meal is awesome. Half a cup of fruit, 3 to 4 ounces of protein, 8 ounces of dairy, a teaspoon maybe of a fat. Focus on those healthier fats as well, and I'll talk more about them in a moment. So if you're out though and you don't have the tools, you can use your hand or maybe use visuals, but the tip of your thumb is typically a tablespoon, so you could consider that with salad dressing or a mayonnaise or a dip if you're at a party and there's onion dip or guacamole, those types of things. A tablespoon is a serving, so you need to be thinking about that.
Okay.
You might be able to have more, matters on your calorie needs.
Okay.
Your teaspoon is about the tip of a finger. A forward fist is about a half a cup. Full fist is a cup. And the palm of your hand is about the size of a deck of cards.
I feel like I need to have a little card in my wallet, and I'll pull it out before I go to parties.
You could, and you can download
funny.
these things. I mean, Google has everything, right?
Yeah.
So keeping those things in mind, or even just keeping it even simpler, if you do need to lose weight, 1 or 2 spoonfuls less of everything throughout the day.
Right.
So the second thing would be consistent with the My Plate. Eat a healthy diet. So we want to make sure that we are choosing from the healthier fats, monounsaturates, olive oil and canola oil. Use more of those, less on the butter. Avocado is a great thing. It's a monounsaturated fat. So you could use that as a spread instead of butter. You could also use peanut butter or cashew butter or almond butter as a spread. They're also got a little bit of protein and some other healthy attributes. Have your whole fruits and vegetables, like I mentioned before. Definitely go towards the leaner proteins. Dairy, have the 1%, 2%, or skim. If you don't do dairy, have other calcium-rich foods, like green leafy vegetables and almonds. And the third tip for helping to prevent diabetes is to get moving. Be active. 150 minutes a week, which is only about 21 minutes per day. And we should all be able to find 21 minutes per day. It can be a gentle walk. It can be yoga. It can be riding a bike. It can be dancing. It can be going up the steps. We all need to be able to find 20 minutes in our day to be active. And that'll help with the weight loss. It helps burn off excess glucose. Great for your head, too. Great way to get blood to your brain so that we think clearer and our cognitive abilities are better.
Absolutely, and just in a better frame of mind generally.
Definitely.
We're happy in our life and satisfied. We need to also do that for the people around us who are depending upon us, as well as ourselves.
And this is the way everybody should eat. Whether you're prone to diabetes or not.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marsha.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Good to see you.
Okay, you
Take
too.
care.
Okay.